Good morning, students. In the last lecture, we finished the introduction of MANET, that is Mobile Network Network. So, in the today's lecture, we will start the routing in the MANET environment. Because routing in the MANET environment is different as compared to the routing in the traditional computer network. So, how it is different and how are the parameters that you should have to follow, that we will elaborate it. So, routing in MANET. So, the first thing is why we need routing in the MANET. So, for example, there are certain nodes, and these are connected as a as in the managed environment. So, in the managed environment, as I told you, each node is connected to another one. So, if it is a sender and this is the receiver, then there can be multiple paths going from sender to the receiver. So now the problem is which path the sender should have to choose such that it has to forward the packet towards the destination node in a well efficient manner, like the low delay and low bandwidth. Means at the end, the average cost should be low. In order to transmit the packet, that path we have to choose. So multiple paths are possible from source to destination. We have to find out the path, or you can say the best path for those to deliver the packets. So in cooperation with these two points, what should be the features of routing protocol in MANET? So the first feature is because there are so many paths from source to the destination. So when the source is forwarding the data towards the destination, in this scenario, the source has to make sure that the packet should be go to the correct direction. Otherwise, the packet looping as well as the packet loss problem will occur in the network, and it will be not good for the performance. So packet should move towards the correct path. And what about the second one? In the second one, when it chooses the path, it has to take care certain parameters like how many number of hoops has to be present, how many number of hoops have to be present in a particular path, as well as how many number of nodes and the links can be present at the particular path. So perfectly and preferably the path which having less number of hoop counts will be preferred because at per hoop the processing and storing and the forwarding technique is used which utilize the delay factor, which increases the delay factor. So due to the packet switching technology it uses, because we are talking about the wireless communication, each node has to be involved in the store and forward technique. The store and the forward technique means buffer has to be present at the intermediate node. So when the processing is done over each node and there are so many number of nodes in a particular path, then the delay factor will get increased. So we have to choose that path in which the number of nodes, or you can say the number of hops, is minimum. So third point, also delay should be minimized because in the wireless communication, the parameter cost which is used to measure the performance from one link to the another link is the delay factor, and in the wired communication it is the distance. The delay can be taken as a cost. So delay should be minimum, as well as packet loss should be minimum. So packet loss happen due to many reasons, like the link failure between two nodes, as well as sometimes the congestion occurred in the network. That's why the packet loss may get happen. Also, when the packet is involved in the looping process, packet is going towards the looping process, my TTL value is getting greater than threshold. And sometimes if you talk about the whole count, when it is in the negative value, then you can say the packet loss is going to happen. So this will not be the case, and due to continuity with the fourth point, looping should be avoided. So these are the features that a managed routing protocol should incorporate when it is forward one data to source to the destination. So as I told you, the managed routing protocol is different from the traditional routing protocol. So what are the difference? So as you remember in the computer network, in the traditional routing protocols, you have learned two routing protocols. The first one is distance vector routing protocol. DVR, and the second one is link state routing protocol, that is LSR. So here the functionality of distance vector routing and LSR routing protocol is somewhat different. So what is the different and what is the updated one, that we will see in our further lecture. So first we will see what is the difference between traditional routing protocol and managed routing protocol. So the first difference is, in the traditional routing protocol, each node in the environment, each node in the path from source to destination does not participate, because in the DVR, whatever the table is maintained and it is distributed in all of the nodes in the topology in order to do the updation. After that, in the routing process, no node is involved because the source will decide the uh, path for a particular packet according to the DVR table of the source. But in the MANET environment, each intermediate node acts as a router. In the previous lecture, I told you each node in the MANET acts as an intermediate node as well as a router. So as a mediator, it has to do a lot of tasks like the forwarding, processing, buffering, as well as providing the services to its intermediate nodes. So why it is successful? Because each node does not participate and the performance of the DVR protocol was good in the traditional routing. The reason was the topology is static. Topology is not getting changed. But in the case of managed environment, the topology is dynamic. So we have to involve each node. So due to topology is static, the routing table used by the routing protocol, traditional routing protocol, is not changing rapidly. And that is the reason that we do not need to incorporate all of the routing nodes in the all of the nodes in the path for transmit the data from source to destination. Just you have to use the routing table of the source. But in the case of managed environment, because my topology is very dynamic, so suppose the DVR routing protocol is used by the managed environment and your topology is dynamic, means topology is getting changed rapidly, and due to this routing tables are updated frequently. When the routing tables are updated frequently, it has to be distributed to its one hop neighborhood node or then its two hop neighborhood node. So just like this way, all of the nodes has to be busy in the updation of the tables because there is frequent update of the topology. If it is the case, then routing table has to change very frequently. Also, in their traditional IP scheme is allowed, but in the mobile managed environment, we have to utilize the mobile IP when there is a handoff is made. So this is another overhead in the managed environment. So before going to the routing protocols, we have to learn about the type of communication in the environment. So basically in the computer network that you already learned, but for the revision I am depicted here that there are three types of communication. The first one is called the unicast, the second one is called the multicast, and the last one is called the broadcast. So unicast is that communication when one entity is communicating to only one entity. There is a one-to-one communication. Multicast is happening that scenario in which one entity wants to communicate to a group. And broadcast is when one entity wants to communicate to all. So like in a section, student section, when two students want to communicate with each other, that is called the unicast. And in the section, suppose a CR wants to announce some news to its all of the group students, all of the batch students, then it is called multicast. And what is the broadcast? Broadcast is that when it suppose our director sir wants to give any information to all of the members, faculties, the students in the triple IT Nagpur, that's another called the one to all. So basically, multicast and broadcast having uses different protocols. So first, because we are using the starting scenario of the managed environment, so we'll jump to the unicast, that is one communication happening over the managed environment. So according to the unicast routing protocol, it is divided into three types of routing protocol. The first one is proactive. So proactive is table driven routing protocol. Means you have to maintain the table each time. You have to ready with your table each time. What is the reactive protocol? Reactive protocol is on demand. Means it has to collect the information of the path or the topology environment when the communication is needed from one node to another node. Otherwise not. It does not need to wastage its energy. So it is very efficient for the power sources. For reduction of the power consumption, reactive protocols are used by the sensor networks. And the last one is called the hybrid routing, because there are some application in which sometimes the quantity of the information is needed, and sometimes there is no information is forwarding of no information is needed. So this type of protocol will carry both of the things like the proactive and reactive. So hybrid routing protocol is the combination of both proactive plus reactive. So one by one, we will see what are the proactive routing protocol, reactive routing protocol. So the first point under the proactive routing protocol is that it is table driven, means you have to maintain the table. The second point is each node should maintain the table that contain root to all nodes. Means all of the nodes involved in the managed environment, has to maintain the routing table, just like the DVR protocol. In the DVR protocol, traditional routing protocol, what happens? Each router has to maintain its local routing table, and after the making of the table, it has to distribute it one hop neighborhood. Then its one hop neighborhood has to distribute its one hop neighborhood. Like so on, it the information has to be updated all of the neighbor in the number of rounds. So when after distribution of the routing tables, when there is a no updation occurs in the cost from one node to another node, then we can say was my network is stabilized. Otherwise, we have to increase the one more round. So like the same way, each node in the proactive routing protocol also should maintain the routing table. And just like in the DVR protocol, in the proactive routing protocol also, each node has to know that what are the node are existing in its environment. So because the nature of the MANET is the frequent updation of the topology. So that's why due to frequent updation of the topology, there is a frequent need to update the table also. So when there are so many updation in the network, means lot of control messages have to be routed. If it is the case, then my network is get congested and the problem of packet loss is happening, which is not good for the performance of the managed environment. So this type of network is uses over that environment when there is not lot of change happening over the environment. Like you can assume uh, as a hostel environment in a triple IT Nagpur in the hostel environment. It is true that one student is going to its his or her friend for communication point of view and it is connected to the mobile ad hoc network, but its range is same because in the triple IT hostel range it is moving, it is not going outside this range. So that's why this proactive routing protocol is suitable at this type of scenario in which mobility does not happen frequently. For example is DSDV, that is destination sequence distance vector routing protocol. Now the second one. The second one is reactive routing protocol. It is called on-demand routing. So because it is on-demand routing, so there is no need to update the routing table each time whenever there is a topology update. The routing table is updated only when it is needed, when there is a communication has to be performed between one node to the another node, and that router has to play as an intermediate node in the path. Otherwise, not. The routing table is not updated always. Also, updation is occurred in path when it is needed in order to perform the communication between two nodes. So here the flooding mechanism is used when there is a updation is needed. The flooding mechanism is used over there in order to broadcast its updation. So obviously here also so many congestion and the overhead in the network, but this congestion and the overhead is occurs in a few times, not always, just like in the proactive routing protocol. So it is variable for such type of routing. So when it is recommended, this routing technique is recommended when the node's mobility is getting high. So we could not estimate the current position of a particular node when the mobility is high. So that's why the routing technique is utilized. So when the mobility is high, then it is recommended. So what are the examples? Example under this protocol is DSR and the another one is AODV that we will discuss in the coming lectures. Now the last one that is called the hybrid protocol. So in the hybrid routing protocol, as I told you, this is the combination of both of the routing protocols in the above, like the proactive and the reactive. So the point is where we have to use the proactive routing protocol and where we have to use the reactive routing protocol because the functionalities are different. Proactive is used every time and the reactive is used when there is a need is happening in order to perform the communication. So the small point is when we talk about the communication has to be performed in the intra-domain network, then we have to use the proactive routing protocol. As I told you example, I give you one example of the triple IT Nagpur hostel, right? So this is the intra-domain network. So we can use proactive routing protocol over there. So for intra-domain communication, proactive routing protocol is used. And when we talk about the inter-domain network, reactive routing protocol is used. So example of this hybrid protocol is called zone routing protocol. When there are so many zones and the node has to perform the communication and wants to transmit the data from one network to another network, from one node, from one zone to another zone. So where here in this scenario you can utilize the zone routing protocol. So in the next coming lecture, I will elaborate all of the protocols regarding the reactive, proactive, and the hybrid. So there are so many numericals has to be asked regarding this DSR, PODB, ZRP. So make sure that you have to listen and watch my lecture carefully as well as practice the numerical part. So this is all about the today's lecture, and we will start the brief introduction of all of the routing protocols from the next lecture. So thank you very much, guys.